You hit a point where you feel a bit flatter than usual. Maybe you are unusually tired. Your gym sessions feel significantly weaker, or your motivation has just completely evaporated. And it is so incredibly easy in that exact moment to jump straight to one very specific conclusion. You think, my testosterone is crashing.
That happens to a lot of people. I mean, it has become the absolute default explanation for almost any drop in physical drive or mental sharpness you might experience today.
It really has. Well, separating the actual biology of what is happening inside your body from all the intense marketing hype offers a clearer way to understand it. Welcome to TalkKast.
I am really glad we are exploring this because low testosterone is a genuine medical condition, but the way it is discussed online has turned it into one of the most overhyped and deeply misunderstood health topics out there.
Right. When you hear the word, you immediately think of pure drive, masculinity, aggression, and hitting massive personal records in the weight room. The imagery surrounding it is just so aggressive.
Exactly. But if we strip all that macho marketing away, you are actually looking at a foundational hormone. Your body simply needs it to function normally.
Tell me more about that.
Well, it is not just about going through puberty or building massive biceps. It is a critical requirement for your entire adult life.
I see.
Yeah, it supports a massive range of bodily systems. We are talking about sexual function and sperm production, of course, but also your muscle mass, your bone density, your body hair, your mood, and just your general baseline of vitality.
I like to think of it like the oil in a car engine, because people treat testosterone like it is the gas pedal. They think more gas equals more speed, more aggression, more muscle.
Right.
But it is actually the oil. Adding extra oil to an already full engine does not make your car go 200 miles an hour. It just blows out the gaskets and makes a mess. But if that oil gets low, the parts start to grind down, the engine runs hot, and absolutely nothing works the way it should.
That is a useful way to look at it. Because when that essential oil is low, your entire system struggles.
Right.
And because it acts like that engine oil affecting the whole body, the symptoms of it being low are incredibly broad.
And that creates a very tricky situation for figuring out what is actually wrong with you.
That is the interesting part. You might just feel flatter, less confident, or less mentally sharp. Or you might notice less interest in sex, more daily fatigue, worse concentration at work, fewer morning erections, and slow changes in your body composition.
And those changes feel completely out of proportion to your daily habits.
Exactly. Those symptoms are entirely real. You are not imagining them. But the critical piece of the puzzle is that those symptoms are not specific to just one hormone.
So you could go to the doctor complaining of low drive, but the actual villain might not be your testicles at all. It could be, your sleep schedule or your waistline.
That is exactly what happens. Those exact symptoms perfectly mirror other modern issues you might be dealing with. Poor sleep, underlying depression, chronic daily stress, obesity, and sleep apnea can create a biological picture that looks identical to a hormone crash.
That is fascinating. How does that actually work? Take chronic stress, for example. What is the mechanism connecting a stressful job to your hormone levels?
It comes down to a biological seesaw involving cortisol, which is your body's primary stress hormone.
Right.
When you are under chronic stress, your body constantly pumps out cortisol. And biologically speaking, cortisol and testosterone operate in opposition.
I get what you mean. So the body prioritizes the stress.
Exactly. When your system thinks you are fighting for your life against a constant threat, it shuts down reproductive hormone production to conserve energy for basic survival.
That makes a lot of sense. Your body does not care about building muscle or reproduction if it thinks you're running from a tiger, or in this case, a terrible boss.
That explains a lot about why you cannot just diagnose yourself from a bad mood, or a random social media clip you saw, or one highly stressful week at work.
This actually reminds me of our conversation on what happens to your body at 40. I have to ask, is a lot of this just the normal aging process? Because we know metabolic shifts happen in middle age, and a slowdown could easily be confused for a sudden hormone crisis.
That is a very important distinction to make. Testosterone does tend to decline gradually as you age. However, that slow age-related decline is not the same thing as true hypogonadism.
And hypogonadism is the medical term for it.
Right. It is the specific medical term for severely low testosterone linked to a broken biological process.
So you cannot just blame the calendar and assume your levels have crashed just because you're getting older.
Exactly. A true medical diagnosis requires a careful process. It should only be diagnosed if you have consistent physical symptoms plus unequivocally low blood testosterone confirmed on repeat morning tests.
I want to highlight that specific detail. Why repeat morning tests? Why does the time of day matter so much?
Because your testosterone levels vary wildly throughout the day, your brain and your testicles communicate in pulses, mostly while you sleep.
I see.
So your levels peak in the early morning and steadily drop as the day goes on. A casual measurement taken at 4 in the afternoon can look disastrously low, but it is completely misleading.
Let's talk about how that communication actually works. Sometimes the problem is in the testicles themselves, right? Due to an injury, an infection, or a genetic issue. But very often the issue starts much higher up.
It starts in the brain, specifically a signaling system involving your hypothalamus and your pituitary gland.
How does that signaling system operate?
Think of your hypothalamus as the thermostat in your brain. It is constantly measuring the testosterone levels in your blood.
Okay, that makes sense.
When it senses a drop, it sends a chemical text message to your pituitary gland. The pituitary gland then sends its own signal down to your testicles, telling them to start production.
So if the thermostat is broken, the furnace never turns on.
That is a good point. But in modern life, the picture is often much less dramatic than a broken brain thermostat or a severe testicular injury. The underlying cause is far more metabolic.
Meaning your daily lifestyle factors are the main culprits actively suppressing your baseline biology.
Excess body fat is a massive factor. When you carry extra weight, particularly around your midsection, it directly impacts your hormonal environment.
Tell me more about that.
Well, fat tissue is not just inert storage, it is highly active. It contains an enzyme called aromatase.
What does aromatase do?
It literally takes your circulating testosterone and converts it into estrogen.
Oh, wow.
So the more excess body fat you carry, the more you are actively draining your own testosterone and increasing your estrogen levels.
That is fascinating. Your own body fat is essentially stealing your primary hormone. Which brings us to how you actually fix this. If the waistline and modern lifestyle are the true culprits, how do you improve that hormonal environment naturally?
Well, the natural route is not about flashy biohacking. It is about improving the fundamental baseline conditions that allow your body to function normally in the first place.
And the absolute strongest lever you have is weight loss.
Without a doubt. Because of that aromatase enzyme we just discussed, improving your body composition and losing excess fat directly reverses that conversion process.
That actually makes sense.
If you are dealing with a broader metabolic health problem, it is going to show up through your hormones. Fixing the metabolism often fixes the hormone profile.
What about sleep? I feel like sleep is constantly overlooked when you are desperately looking for a quick fix.
Sleep is one of the most critical, underappreciated parts of this entire equation. Like we mentioned, your body produces the vast majority of its testosterone in overnight pulses.
Right.
If your sleep is restricted, highly irregular, or constantly disrupted, your levels are going to plummet.
And sleep apnea is a major hidden driver here.
Yeah. It is a massive hidden driver. When you have untreated sleep apnea, you actually stop breathing multiple times an hour. Your brain panics because oxygen is dropping.
Oh, well, that sounds intense.
It is. This triggers a massive release of adrenaline and cortisol.
And there's that cortisol seesaw again.
Exactly. You are essentially choking and triggering a survival stress response all night long. That shuts down your overnight hormone production completely.
That explains a lot. Many people chase complex, expensive hormone solutions when their most urgent medical issue is actually a blocked airway while they sleep.
That happens to a lot of people.
I want to push back on something I see all the time online. You have these fitness influencers heavily promoting the testosterone spiking workout.
Right, you see that everywhere.
It seems completely absurd to me to chase a 15-minute hormonal bump from lifting heavy weights and actually believe that is going to change your life or fix your chronic fatigue.
That is a very common misunderstanding. The idea that a single workout spikes your testosterone enough to change your life completely misses the biological reality.
I knew it.
Yeah, you might get a tiny transient bump for a few minutes after lifting, but it drops right back to baseline.
So what is the actual mechanism? Why does resistance training actually matter if the spike is an illusion?
Resistance training matters because of its long-term structural effects on your body. Building and maintaining muscle mass improves your body composition.
I see.
It drastically increases your insulin sensitivity, meaning your body manages blood sugar much better. That combination reduces overall systemic inflammation and creates a much healthier metabolic environment over months and years.
So it is the long-term resilience that matters, not the brief post-workout spike.
That is the key point. You are training to change how your body operates at its baseline, which naturally supports healthier hormone production.
But let's be honest. Slow, reliable lifestyle changes like losing weight over 6 months, going to bed on time, and lifting weights consistently are incredibly boring to human nature.
That is true.
If a process takes months, human nature dictates we are going to look for a shortcut. Which brings us perfectly to the multi-million-dollar supplement aisle.
The natural male vitality market is an entirely different world. It is built on promises and hype that far outlive any actual scientific reality.
Let's talk about some of the big names you see on every shelf.
Yeah.
Like DHEA is absolutely everywhere.
It is a precursor hormone. It is often marketed with the implication that if you consume it, your body will automatically use it to restore youthful testosterone levels.
So the marketing assumes it is like buying a bag of flour and hoping it automatically turns into a fully baked cake just because it is in your kitchen.
That is a useful way to look at it, but human biology is much more complicated.
Right.
The body decides what to do with that precursor based on its current environment.
Wow.
Often it just converts it into estrogen or flushes it out. It has not reliably increased testosterone or provided meaningful performance benefits in any measurable way.
What about Tribulus terrestris? That has been sold as the ultimate natural testosterone herb for as long as I can remember.
When you look closely at the underlying biology, Tribulus terrestris is simply no more effective than a placebo at increasing total serum testosterone.
Oh, wow.
It is the perfect example of how aggressive marketing can completely ignore reality for decades and still sell millions of bottles.
And ashwagandha. That one is incredibly popular right now. It is mostly promoted for stress reduction, but it is very heavily implied that it will boost your hormone levels.
Ashwagandha is slightly more complicated. It can help modulate that cortisol stress response we talked about earlier.
Okay, so that helps the baseline.
Right. So if your testosterone is suppressed entirely because of chronic stress, lowering your cortisol might help your baseline recover, but it is not a direct hormone booster.
And it is not without risks, right?
The safety guidance is actually quite cautious. While short-term use might be tolerated, the long-term safety is very unclear.
Tell me more.
There are very real reported side effects, including rare instances of liver injury. It absolutely should not be treated as a harmless daily vitamin.
Speaking of vitamins, you constantly hear about zinc and vitamin D. To me, taking massive doses of these without actually having a genuine deficiency is exactly like pouring water into a glass that is already full.
That actually makes sense.
It does not make the glass magically hold more water. It just spills over and makes a mess.
Exactly. That explains a lot about how these vitamins actually work in the body. They are essential micronutrients.
Right.
Correcting a genuine deficiency in vitamin D or zinc will absolutely support your general health and, by extension, support your normal hormone function.
But if your levels are already normal, taking a massive supplement pill is not going to push you into some elite, superhuman performance state.
Exactly. You are just creating expensive urine.
There are also hidden dangers in this market that go way beyond just wasting your money on herbs that do not work.
That is the most concerning part of the entire supplement industry. Bodybuilding and performance enhancement products are frequently adulterated.
Adulterated how?
Because the market moves so fast, products can contain completely hidden ingredients, including actual drug-like compounds and unlisted anabolic steroids.
That is terrifying.
It is. The risk of sudden liver injury or cardiovascular strain in this specific category is a very real threat.
So if natural lifestyle changes take time, and the supplement aisle is mostly an expensive illusion filled with hidden risks, what happens when you decide to pursue the medical route? Let's talk about actual prescribed testosterone replacement therapy.
Prescription therapy is a very serious medical treatment. It is meant for confirmed hypogonadism to correct severe biological symptoms.
Right.
It is not a natural booster, and it is definitely not a casual lifestyle upgrade just because you feel a little tired or you want to recover from the gym faster.
And then there is the underground use of steroids, which is entirely different from a doctor's prescription.
Underground use carries massive, life-altering risks. It involves much higher doses, often stacked with other synthetic drugs, with zero medical oversight.
That sounds incredibly dangerous.
We are talking about brutal dependence, severe withdrawal symptoms that crush your mood for months, and catastrophic organ damage.
Even carefully, doctor-prescribed therapy has limitations and risks that you need to be aware of.
Absolutely. External testosterone affects your blood viscosity.
Meaning what exactly?
It can thicken your blood, which leads to warnings about increased blood pressure and cardiovascular strain.
That makes sense.
It is also used very cautiously or avoided entirely in men with untreated severe sleep apnea because it can actually make the breathing disruptions much worse.
There's one thing about the medical route that genuinely surprised me: the fertility blind spot. It is deeply ironic to me that taking a hormone so heavily associated with absolute masculinity and virility can actually shut down your sperm production entirely.
That is the crucial fertility trap. It matters far more than you might realize.
Go on.
Many people assume taking the hormone will simply make them feel stronger and more virile across the board. But taking an external source of testosterone completely suppresses your body's own internal signaling.
Let's go back to that brain thermostat analogy. How does the external hormone break the communication?
When you inject or apply external testosterone, your blood levels rise. Your hypothalamus, the thermostat, senses that the house is incredibly hot.
Right.
So it stops sending the chemical text message to your pituitary gland. The pituitary stops signaling the testicles. Because the testicles are no longer receiving the signal to work, they completely shut down their own production.
And since sperm production happens in the testicles, turning off the furnace stops the assembly line entirely.
That actually makes sense of why it is so dangerous to do casually.
Yeah.
Your natural production drops to zero and your fertility plummets.
So a younger guy who wants to start a family in the next few years could accidentally sabotage his own future just by using this as a lifestyle tool to get slightly better gym results.
That explains a lot about why medical oversight is non-negotiable. If you are planning for fertility, you absolutely cannot treat hormone replacement like an innocent lifestyle hack. It is one of the clearest examples of why you have to look at your entire biological system.
This really brings us back to the smartest, most logical approach. If you suspect your levels are dropping, your best response is not panic.
Yeah.
And it is definitely not denial. It is looking at the entire pattern of your daily health.
Exactly. You have to ask yourself what the pattern is showing you. Is it just a few days of tiredness, or is it chronically lower libido, a worse training response, fewer morning erections, increasing body fat, lower motivation, and terrible sleep, all happening simultaneously for months?
If it is that broad pattern, you have to attack the big lifestyle levers first. Prioritize your sleep hygiene. Check for sleep apnea if you snore heavily. Manage your weight to stop that aromatase conversion. Get consistent resistance training and drastically reduce your alcohol intake.
And if the severe symptoms persist after you have genuinely addressed those baseline conditions, then you get properly tested. You do the repeated morning blood tests with a medical professional to find out exactly why your thermostat or your production might be broken.
It is about having the discipline to do the boring things in the best way possible. It means relying on less supplement nonsense, searching for fewer hidden health problems, and committing to more genuine movement and recovery.
That is the interesting part. The most deeply effective interventions are almost always the least glamorous ones. And when true medical hypogonadism is actually present, it deserves the respect of a proper medical diagnosis and a carefully monitored treatment plan, rather than reckless self-experimentation.
It makes you wonder, if our modern environment of glowing screens at midnight, chronic work stress, and ultra-processed food is actively fighting against our baseline biology every single day, maybe the smartest move isn't taking an expensive pill. Maybe it is simply having the radical discipline to turn off your phone and go to sleep on time.
That is a good point. Listening to the systemic signals your body is sending is so much more powerful than constantly looking for a synthetic shortcut.
What is my body trying to tell me right now?
That is the perfect question to ask.
Thanks for listening to TalkKast.